back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. Apologies, I need to increase on my screen brightness. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing all right. I hope everything is okay with you. It's a pleasure to be back this morning, and we will be speaking Manchester United versus Arsenal, that Premier League preview, and also have all the insights in regards to the upcoming season, the match day one, what our expectations should be going into match day one, and everything to do with that regard. So allow me to have our audios tested before we get into the thick of the conversation on this beautiful Friday morning. And I hope many of you get to join us for today's broadcast. Thank you so much for all those that made part of last night's broadcast. I know some of you dropped off and were unable to return after we canceled the initial broadcast due to sound challenges. We had to, restart the broadcast, which was very unfortunate, But we managed to restart it, and we did get the conversation going for about 1 hour and 10 minutes or so. So thank you so much for those that kept us company. People like Pedri, Testers of Life, King Lotto, who is confident for exams, and every single one of you that managed to catch last night's broadcast. It was a pleasure seeing you around. Thank you so much for being part of that broadcast. Of course, the transfer window equally continues to rage on just as much as the African Nations Championship. That's the CHAN. For those of you that are following those events, the tournament is being hosted by the three East African nations of Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. They are the host nations for the tournament. It's an African tournament, in which players that play within their domestic leagues get to showcase their talents. Just making sure my comments are well turned on to avoid any glitches, because the other day I did miss out on some comments because they were not reflecting on my screen. And while I may sometimes read them off the secondary screen, sometimes I get to turn away. So we will be speaking about that and more. So where do we get started? As far as the morning update is concerned, allow me start things off with the African Nations Championships, because today there's more action coming our way. I know South Africa in action today against Niger, while Algeria will be up against Guinea. Guinea against Algeria, that game will kick off at 5 p.m. East African time, while the game between South Africa and Niger will kick off at 8 p.m. East African time. Both games will be played at the Mandela National Stadium in Nambole. But yesterday's results, we did see DR Congo, the two-time champions of the African Nations Championship, beat up against Angola by 2-0, while Morocco, who have equally won it twice, did beat up against Zambia by 3-1. So that's the update from that side. So we are going into match day one of the Premier League season, and I don't know what kind of expectations you people have, but I, for one, am really eager. Looking forward to this new Premier League season. Of course, it has a lot going for it. So many expectations across board from different teams, from different fans. But match day one is always a nervous day. It's by its own standard is often a measure, is often an extension of preseason, because teams have many new players. Teams are still signing players. Those players are yet to fit in. For some, they do have unfortunate injuries to contend with. Depending on how quickly you return for preseason. For example, we do have Chelsea and Manchester City that did play in the FIFA Club World Cup, so their preseason was a jump stop, kind of jump thing, because as soon as the season ended, they went away for a couple of days, returned and prepared for the FIFA Club World Cup, and then after that, they went for a break and then returned for the preseason. Yesterday we were speaking about Paris Saint-Germain, and I was saying they managed to beat Tottenham Hotspurs after returning to training for just a mere 6 days. So it is like that. So Of course, it does kick off today at 10 p.m. East African time, when Liverpool take on AFC Bournemouth, while Aston Villa will be up against Newcastle in the Saturday early kickoff at 2:30 p.m. Brighton will take on Fulham at 5 p.m., while Sunderland will be at home against West Ham on the same day at the same kickoff time. Tottenham Hotspur will entertain Burnley, while at 7:30 p.m. Wolverhampton Wanderers will host Manchester City to conclude Saturday. Super Sunday, we'll see a London derby between Chelsea and Crystal Palace at 4 p.m., while Nottingham Forest will entertain Brentford at the same kickoff time. And then in the late kickoff of Super Sunday, it is the big game of the weekend between Manchester United versus Arsenal. So that will come at around 6:30 p.m. on a Sunday. And then on Monday Night Football, Leeds United will entertain Everton there. So to complete match day one. So that's the run of fixtures that we will be looking at, that we will have for match day one. Like I said, there's so many teams. No matter how much you feel prepared, or no matter how much you prepare during preseason, I do not think there's anything that prepares teams for the shock that often is bound to happen when the first whistle is blown in the Premier League. Sometimes we've had nightmares, we've had scares in terms of big teams being beaten. Timantaos says yes, the leagues are back. Indeed, they are back, and I think it's a very, very good feeling amongst football fans across board, because the leagues get to return. So for some they come well prepared, others are ill prepared, but again, it can be a shocker. It can be a shocker depending on who you face on your match day one. And for Arsenal, it does not come any tougher than a trip to Old Trafford. For Liverpool, maybe it does not come any easier than taking on FC Bournemouth at home on the opening night. Not to say that Bournemouth are an easy opponent, but at least they are fair compared to what Aston Villa will have when they take on Newcastle on Saturday, in the Saturday's early kickoff. Perhaps it doesn't come close to what Nottingham Forest will be up against when they take on Brentford, and things like that. So it depends on how you do look at it. Chelsea win the Premier League. That's Das. Das says Chelsea. He predicts that Chelsea will win the Premier League. No more partying for me. Only watching football. That's Timantaos. That's very, very good. Good that you even had some time to party. But anyway, that's the nature of the summer when people do break away. But football in itself is entertainment enough. It's partying enough. Depending on where you usually watch your football from. Daus is not the only person I've seen that predict that Chelsea will win the Premier League title. A lot of people are growing confident in Chelsea's prowesses, but I think a lot of that emanates from what they were able to do last season in the UEFA Conference League, as well as in the FIFA Club World Cup, where they beat PSG by 3-0 in the finals to lift the inaugural edition of the expanded FIFA Club World Cup. Then also, you look at them qualifying for the UEFA Champions League when they finished fourth on the Premier League table, and yet not many people had given them a chance at the very start of the season. So I think that's where people like Das, as well as others, stand on their two legs to predict that Chelsea will throw their hat in the ring. Yesterday, I did put out a video. If you go to the channel and check out the video section, I did say I do expect Manchester City to struggle a bit through this season, but I expect Chelsea to be title contenders to compete for the Premier League title, and Manchester United to bounce back. So for full thoughts, go to the channel and check out that video. You'll give me your feedback under the comments section. That says Manchester United Arsenal 2-2 or United win. I feel it. Arteta's done. Timantao says I did not say Chelsea was going to win the league. No, it's not you that said it. It's Das that said that Chelsea are going to win the league. Yes, it's not you, Timan. It's Das. It's Das Queries who said that Chelsea are winning the league. So it's not you. No pun intended. Then, okay, Timan says if Arsenal does a second place, what happens to Mikel Arteta? Again, I do not think anything happens to Mikel Arteta within the ranks of his bosses. That's what I feel. So, for example, if Arsenal finish second, maybe they scoop up the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, go very far within the UEFA Champions League, maybe semi-finals again, and or maybe reach the finals. I do not think anything gets done to Mikel Arteta by his bosses, because they seem to like him a lot, and for good reason, maybe when they assess themselves. But among the Arsenal fan base, he will sort of go out of favor. He will continuously go out of favor because he's been at the project for 5 years and is now entered the 6th year of his project. So if it is not bearing fruit, then people start to wonder, will it ever bear fruit? Is he the man to, yes, he has brought us thus far, but is he the man to lead us to the promised land? He may not be the Moses, he may not be he may not be the Moses that leads Arsenal to the promised land. It could be somebody else, So again, there's serious teams to draw comparison from that have done it with lesser resources or with a much smaller team and that kind of thing, and that in that kind of sense. So when you assess all those situations and those options, and I was saying this again, I think yesterday when we were assessing who will be under more pressure between Ruben Amorim and Mikel Arteta, I was saying that while they are under different kinds of pressure, Mikel Arteta must be desperate to win a major title of at least the Premier League or the UEFA Champions League before Chelsea win anything, before Chelsea win either of those two. Because just imagine Enzo Maresca guides Chelsea to a Premier League title or to a UEFA Champions League title before Mikel Arteta. I mean, that will be a punch in the gut to say Mikel Arteta is not justice, because otherwise nothing else will explain that kind of failure, So within the realms of his bosses, I do not think much happens to him. But in terms of fan confidence, that one will go significantly down. Of course, there are already doubts among a good number of the Arsenal fan base who think he is not the man to guide Arsenal to major silverware. There are huge doubts about that. Then also, you may start to hear players wanting to leave, players that are very, very pivotal to this project, players like William Saliba, players like Bukayo Saka, players like Gabriel Magalhaes, players like Martin Odegaard. Why? Maybe Declan Rice, because while they do love the club, they like the manager, and they're playing good football. If they are not winning and they are in it to win, then clearly, they may want to seek greener pastures elsewhere in as far as winning major silverware is concerned. So you do not want to push Arsenal into that kind of corner, into that kind of situation. That says my top six. My top six is Chelsea, Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United, and Aston Villa. That's his top six. Of course, it's contrary to my own prediction for a top six. For those of you that are interested in knowing my whole Premier League table prediction, you can as well go over to the channel and check out that video in regards to my predictions for 2025-2026. But as far as my top six are concerned, I went for Arsenal to win the Premier League title. I went for Liverpool to finish second, Chelsea to finish third, Manchester City to finish fourth, Aston Villa to finish fifth, and then Newcastle to finish sixth, Manchester United seventh, and then others follow. Those are my predictions. Do let me know what your thoughts are on those particulars. Now, again, like I said, for Liverpool, I think they're okay. We did discuss Liverpool versus Bournemouth last night. For those of you that managed to catch the broadcast, for those of you that didn't, my prediction was a 3-0 victory for Liverpool because it's a home game. You're the defending champions. Bournemouth is no walkover, if anything. Last season, they managed to beat them by 3-1 at Anfield, while the reverse fixture at the Vitality Stadium, they managed to win it by 2-0, although it wasn't pretty. But as far as the main topic today is concerned, Manchester United versus Arsenal, Manchester United get to kick off the Premier League season at home or on home turf, that's at Old Trafford, for the 9th consecutive season. I'm not sure there's any other team that's been that lucky. And I was thinking on it, and I'm like, how much United is so lucky to always start the season at home, whether it has been successful or not. but I think they have a 67% win rate on match day one. And the last time, and which I think may have been the only time that Arsenal did meet Manchester United on the opening day of the season, you have to go back to 1989 and 1990, that season, where Manchester United beat up against Arsenal by 4 goals to 1. So, in regards to an opening day fixture for these two teams, meeting. So it's one that hasn't come very, very often. And Man United being at home, of course, they have the home advantage. You look at their team, very, very good team. Nusa Mazoroi, Lenny Yoro, Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, Matthias De Ligt, Andre Onana, Altai Bendia, team hit on, of course. Andre Onana is possibly expected to start in goal. Aiden Heaven, who they recently signed from Arsenal, looks very physically good, really in shape. He does compete very well physically. He has the pace. Patrick Togu looks brilliant. That midfield, towards the tail end of last season, Casemiro was on fire. Manuel Ugarte is still a 50-50 for me. Kobe Mino has not progressed quickly as he had promised to be when he had just broken throughout that team. Bruno Fernandes, the captain, arguably the best player in that team. I mean, he does create majority of their chances, as he does, score many of their goals. So he's a very reliable player. Then you look at, of course, the new additions in Matthias Cunha and Brian Mbeumo, those two number 10s. Mason Mount is growing in favor for Ruben Amorim. He does seem to like him a lot, so he could be one of the starters, if not otherwise. Then Benjamin Sesko, I do not know. I think the fixture comes a little too early for Benjamin Sesko to start the game. So if we were to predict what Manchester United's starting 11 would look like, I would go Andre Onana, I would go Nusa Mazoroi, I would go Lenny Yoro, and maybe Matthias De Ligt. And then I would go Patrick Togu, Amadou Diallo, Bruno Fernandes alongside Casemiro. And then ahead of them, I think it could be Matthias Cunha, Brian Mbeumo, and Mason Mount. Now, Mason Mount to play as one of the two 10s alongside with Mbeumo or Matthias Cunha playing as the first 9. That's how I would see or envision Manchester United assembling up against Arsenal. By shape or design, I do not think it's going to be anything other than a 3-4-2, a 3-4-2-1 kind of system, but it may be a fluid kind of system. In terms of facing Arsenal, last season, Man United were unable to beat Arsenal apart from knocking them out of the FA Cup. I think at the 4th round, when they knocked them out, that game ended in a 1-1 draw in normal time before they knocked out Arsenal on penalties. You remember Man United received a red card in that game, and Altai Bendia saved a Martin Odegaard penalty in that game. So then when it came to the Premier League, Arsenal did, I think, win the first fixture before that 1-1 draw at Old Trafford, in as far as my memory serves me, when it comes to the two sides meeting in the Premier League. Then also, actually, yes, Arsenal did win their home fixture by 2-0. I think that was in December 2024, before meeting in March 9th, when they shared the spoils in a 1-1 draw. Bruno Fernandes' free kick and Declan Rice's equalizer were the goals that cancelled out each other. Das Query says Manchester City is a dark horse. I'm not surprised if they finish a season above than Liverpool and Arsenal. 5 years, 4 Premier League titles. People forget about that. I do not think we've forgotten about that. But for me particularly, in my assessment of Manchester City, and I've said this and I'll repeat it, that I cannot write off Manchester City entirely, not because of how good their squad is, but because of how good a manager that they do have. Because if anyone is capable of pulling out a rabbit of their pocket or something unique out of up their sleeves, then it's going to be Pep Guardiola. Then you remember that in the 2023-2024 campaign, Liverpool finished third on the Premier League table with 82 points, 7 points behind Arsenal and 9 points behind the eventual champions, Manchester City. Now, there's nothing to say that Manchester City cannot crawl up above Arsenal and Liverpool and win the Premier League title, because they finished third last season with 71 points, only 3 behind Arsenal. In fact, they had more wins than Arsenal. They had 21 wins and Arsenal had 20. Then that means that there were 11 points behind Liverpool, the eventual champions. Sorry, about no, not 11, not 11. About 13 points behind the eventual champions in Liverpool. So they could crawl their way back. They're not going to have all the attention, I think, and this is what may work to their advantage. Yes, there will be a bit of media scrutiny around them, but I think the magnifying glass is not going to be on them as it has been in recent seasons, because for the first time in as long as I can remember, in the last 8 years or thereabouts, Manchester City begin a season and they are not being deemed title favorites. And you do not, like I said, I've not seen that in the last, 8 years. So that gives them that advantage to sort of go about their business under the radar. Then also, you look at their challenges. They do not have the right back. Of course, that doesn't define their season, but it is a factor. Then you do have Rodri, did return from that anterior cruciate ligament injury, but is yet to find his crown. In fact, he had an injury setback that does rule him out of action, at least until mid-September, maybe after the September international break. So, and we know that when they play with Rodri and he clicks, they're oftentimes a very, very different beast. Apologies on the background noise, in case you're hearing a kid making noise. Apologies on that. I have very little control on that. So, when you look at that, and so when he plays Rodri and he clicks, they're very, very different beasts. And without him, they're second to themselves by their own standards, and that's how I would want to look at it. Then, of course, but they've added some very, very significant players. I think Ryan Cherki is a very good player. Tijan Rienders is a very, very good player. Ryan Ashnory at left back is a very good player, and of course, so they're going to go about their business without much pressure, as is going to be on maybe Liverpool and Arsenal, So that's how they're going to be about their business. Again, make a reflection on Arne Slot last season. He did go about his season without significant pressure, because he was a new manager walking into the shoes of Jurgen Klopp. Not so many expectations today on his shoulders as they are going to be this season. So he went about his business not with simplicity, but without much expectations, really. So anything he would have achieved last season was always going to be an overachievement by his own measure as a new manager. While for Liverpool, it may not have been in that sense. JY815 does join us, says hello. Spirit of LFC fan says you're so intelligent and have high IQ in football. You must get everyone football score correct. You know where all the football is going to transfer and predict the future of football. Please explain. I can't predict every game of football and get correct scores, because predictions by their very nature are very subjective and they're only predictions. But thank you so much for the compliment, a spirit of LFC fans. You did say Slot remember Conte, our first season with the Premier League, but in the next season Conte finished with Chelsea on 5th place in the table. What's next for Slot? Okay. When let's conclude with Manchester City briefly. So when you look at their forward lines, I do not think there's anything to worry. Omar Mamush and Erling Haaland, they've shown us that they are really, really capable of banging the goals. That midfield, I think it's going to be predominantly, it could be Mateo Kovacic alongside Tijan Rienders and maybe Bernardo Silva, then Jeremy Doku. Of course, there's an expectation that Savinho could leave for Manchester City, but again, they can always play Omar Mamush on the wing. Then you do have Phil Foden in there. If Phil Foden Phil Foden could bounce back and have a very brilliant season. We wait for that reincarnation. Then in the centre back, of course, you do have Ruben Diaz, you do have Kushanov, you do have John Stones, Nathan Ake, Manela Kanji, you have Joshko Vadiol to play for you anywhere at left back, those kinds of things. But Ryan Atnor is now there. So again, we'll wait to see how Pep Guardiola goes about assembling his team. But they cannot be really, really ruled out. But I think overall, with the length of the season, my prediction is for them to finish fourth on the Premier League table. I could be wrong, just like I was wrong about Liverpool last season and Manchester City, So quickly about Liverpool, you do talk about where will Arne Slot finish. Now, for me, I've gone with him to finish second. Now, while the Liverpool have really, really recruited well, they've done very good business so far in this transfer window. Although I believe there is still room for more, and I wouldn't be surprised if at the tail end of the transfer window, they end up with Alexander Isak. Of course, they have to play Newcastle match day 2, so I do not expect a transfer to be made until after match day 2, which will come next weekend. However, even if Liverpool were not to get Alexander Isak, they would still have had a brilliant transfer window. They've brought in Hugo Ekitike, Florian Wirtz, they've brought in Milos Kakes, Jeremy Frimpong, Georgi Mamadashvili, the goalkeeper, of course, Woodman, the third choice goalkeeper, who was signed as a free agent from Preston after leaving Preston North End. They are bringing in the 18-year-old Italian centre-back from Parma called Giovanni Leoni. They are interested in Mark Kehi, although the two clubs between Liverpool and Crystal Palace are far apart in the evaluation of the player. So there are chances that Mark Kehi could stay at Crystal Palace and see out the remainder of his contract, pretty much the way Ibrahim Konate could stay at Liverpool and see out the remainder of his contract. Then when you look at that midfield, so I believe they need a figure in that centre back role. I believe they need maybe another midfielder and an attacking player. Now, the reason as to why I believe they need an attacking player is because they've lost 3 of their attacking players. RIP to Diego Jota, then they've lost Darwin Núñez to Al Hilal, then they've lost also Luis Diaz, who has gone to Bayern Munich. So they've had some outgoings. Of course, they have some youngsters that they could look up to, the likes of Riongo Moha. Harvey Elliott is still with the club, although there's a lot of interest for him around the Premier League and beyond. And chances are he could move before the window closes down if a good offer comes in. So that means that maybe they would need a replacement for a player like Harvey Elliott. I would not know what is going to happen with Curtis Jones. But overall, given the amount of investment that Liverpool have done to sort of back Arne Slot to help with his project, now there's going to be an expectation. There's going to be expectations for him to win the Premier League title because he won it last season with the squad that he has, which hasn't changed that much, but for I think about 5 players. Because the goalkeeper Kelleher made at least 10 Premier League appearances last season. Then you lost Alexander Trent-Arnold, who I think you replaced well with Jeremy Frimpong. Although I do not think it will take him long to adapt to the Premier League, but I think it may take him a bit of time to learn that he has to be at least half as good defending as he is good going forward, at least for the start. Then, of course, the lost Jarell Quansah. Last season, Ibrahim Konate made 31 Premier League appearances. So Jarell Quansah did, feature in the other games. So you also had Virgil van Dijk made 37 appearances. So for that one game, he only missed. Then you look at Diego Jota, the kind of player that is good enough to start, but is also not fast about coming off the bench to give impact to the team. So Darwin Núñez is equally left. So in the core of the starting 11, there's not too many changes, although they've lost players that were quite integral to what they were able to achieve last season, both in the Premier League and in the UEFA Champions League. So you look at that and say, they may have to bank on the fact that Hugo Ekitike clicks right from the onset, that Florian Wirtz clicks. Of course, he's looked really, really decent by measure of pre-season. And then you look at You look at Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kakes. Milos Kakes has been already playing in the Premier League and be the best left back last season, in my opinion. So I do not think you'll have struggles fitting in. Then also, I mean, they have the core of the team. Ryan Gravenberch, Dominic Soboslai, Alexis McAllister, and that midfield should be good enough. So, however, I get the feeling that one of those three midfielders is going to be sacrificed, and it could be Alexis McAllister that gets a sacrifice to accommodate Ryan Gravenberch alongside Dominic Soboslai because of the kind of cover that he may provide at right back every time Jeremy Frimpong goes forward. And then you have Florian Wirtz ahead of the double pivot, and then you have Cody Gakpo, Mo Salah, and Hugo Ekitike. So Federico Chiesa may leave, although apparently I was reading a report that seemed to suggest that Liverpool have told him that he's going to be key to their squad this season, given that Luis Diaz has left the club. So I do believe that Liverpool need another forward player, a way to see if they will be able to land in someone, or they will look to the academy graduates to create that impact. But given the amount of pressure that is going to be, so because there's going to be that pressure, a pressure of the good signings that is received, a pressure and the expectation that because he won it last season, he should be able to do it again, and that kind of feeling. Never mind that Liverpool have never defended the Premier League title before. In any case, they've only won it twice, in 2020 and now 2025. That's, I mean, the Premier League. You remember, Premier League starts in 1992 after the reboot of the league, you know. So when I do that assessment, that's where I come to the conclusion to say that they will finish second. Anyways, let's retreat back to the Arsenal Manchester United preview. Guys, I have to respond to your questions and comments. That's why, you know, when I start a topic, before I conclude it, some questions come in and I ought to answer them. So, in the United versus Arsenal, on the side of Arsenal, I think we had finished with the Manchester United part. By the Manchester United, I was really, really impressed in the way they pressed the ball during preseason, leading with the front three, bringing in the wing backs and the double pivot. It looked good, although it's a beatable system. Arsenal should have zero excuses whatsoever beating up about a team who are still very, very young within their project. While Arsenal are well advanced within their own. Of course, there's some new players in there for Arsenal, like Victor Gyökeres, Martin Zubimendi, maybe Noni Madueke, but those should be no excuses. How do I expect Arsenal to set up? David Raya in goal, William Saliba alongside Gabriel Magalhaes. Maybe the fixture, I do not know if he's really, really fully fit, but at least we got to see him for at least 60 minutes against Athletic Bilbao in the Emirates Cup. That's for Gabriel Magalhaes. Ricardo Carafiori would be my choice to start at left back, as well as Julian Timber to start at right back. Now, the reason as to why I would pick Ricardo Carafiori is because of what he offers going forward. You know, defensively, he may not be the best, when it comes to defending from a left back position, because we know when he plays as a center back, he defends much better. So, but what he offers Arsenal going forward, helping Gabriel Martinelli, is really, really important for me, and that's why I would choose him. Then in that midfield, my expectation would be Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice, and Martin Odegaard. I expect a double pivot of Martin Zubimendi and Declan Rice. Those two to be switching up play, depending on the tempo of the game or the intensity of the game, deciding who goes forward and who stays behind. Martin Odegaard to remain the creative gear for this Arsenal side, and then Bukayo Saka with Victor Gyökeres. Now it's at the left wing where I'm thinking to myself, do you have Gabriel Martinelli start or do you have Noni Madueke start? When it comes to pace, they're both equally good. When it comes to dribbles, based on numbers, Noni Madueke is slightly better. So I do not know, but personally, I would start with Noni Madueke to give Gabriel Martinelli a reminder that you've got to get a little better than you are, you know, because while I do not critique him that much, because it's the system within which he plays that is giving him that bit of decline in overall output, especially when it comes to goals and assists. But I'd start with Noni Madueke just to, give him that motivation to say that if you're not careful, this slot is up for grabs. If Noni Madueke can make it his own. So in that kind of sense. So then of course there's that expectation that Benjamin Sesko would want to get one over Arsenal. Arsenal, we know we're interested in signing him. We know Victor Gyökeres. Victor Gyökeres would want to self-impose him on the Premier League because so many people have written him off. He's come from the Portuguese league. It's not any strong and things like that. So many people have written him off really. So with that in mind, earlier on we had a prediction from Dust saying his prediction is a 2-2 draw. I wouldn't differ much from that prediction because one, Arsenal have not lost to any of the big five in the last 2 years. By the big five, I mean Manchester United, I mean Chelsea, Manchester City, Liverpool, and Tottenham Hotspurs. So that's an advantage, a food for thought. Two, Arsenal are not afraid of taking on any opponents away from home, and they tend to defend really, really well away from home, better than they've done in the last couple of years, better than they've done when they're playing at their better than they've done while playing at their own home turf. I don't know why I'm yawning this very early morning, but anyways, so that's my expectation. My prediction would be a 2-2 draw, but if any side would fancy to win it, it should be Arsenal. I mean, Mikel Arteta should have no excuse. He's going to be under a significant amount of pressure coming into this season, the expectation that he has to win a major trophy. For Ruben Amorim, his pressure is going to be different to avoid having a bad start to the season. However, I do not think losing to a team like Arsenal would get him crucified, depending on how they play and things like that. Then quickly, okay, Aston Villa, Newcastle. Usually, it's the home team that tends to win this fixture. By all leaps and bounds. Brighton, Fulham, Manchester City up against Wolves. I do expect Manchester City to go to Molyneux and win that game. Not an easy one. Then Chelsea against Crystal Palace. I do expect a Chelsea victory on opening day. Although Crystal Palace are very, very stubborn opponents. But anyways, guys, let's quickly run to the latest from the world of transfers before we wrap up this morning's episode of the football update. Of course, lots of things happening. James Marketing to Nottingham Forest from I can see we have Clinton Moodley. Clinton Moodley says hi to you too. How are you? Where are you joining us from this beautiful morning? But it's a pleasure to have you on the broadcast. Newcastle are signing Jacob Ramsey. Yes, Newcastle are signing Jacob Ramsey from Aston Villa in a deal that is worth about £44 million for Australia. Wow. How is Australia? What do I know about Australia? Maybe Sydney, Melbourne. Those are places I've heard about. Then they did host the Commonwealth Games. When was that? Was that 2020? When was that? Was it 2019? Around that time or 2018? I think 2018. Thereabout. Gold Coast. Then also the Kangaroos and the expansive ranches. But anyways, it's good to have you on the broadcast. Any particular team that you do support? It's hot here, brother. Queensland. Okay, yeah. Australia can be really, really hot in some parts of it. I don't know if it's across the entire country, but it can be a very, very hot side. Oh, you do support Manchester United. Wow. Okay. What would be your prediction going into match day 1 for Sunday's fixture against Arsenal. Um, depending. Uh, who Das asks who relegated. My predictions: who gets relegated? In my relegation, I have Burnley, I have Sunderland, and Brentford. Those are the teams I went for to be relegated. Those are the teams I went for to be relegated. So you went with Sunderland, Burnley, and Wolverhampton Wanderers. Okay. Okay. Then Clinton says Man United Arsenal, that's ending in a 1-1 draw. Again, I think many of us are predicting a draw. Again, the reason for that is, it's the first game of the season. It's a bit of an icebreaker. You do not know what to expect. By it, like I said, by its own measure, appears to be an extension of preseason. New players still trying to get settled in. Managers get to see their first new phase of tactics and see if they can really work out and that kind of thing. So that's why I have this feeling that the two teams may cancel out each other. But the two teams continue to make news in as far as the transfer window is concerned. But like I said, Manchester City's James McAtee is destined for a move to Nottingham Forest. That deal has been since agreed. Dango Ouattara is going from Bournemouth to Brentford. And we've got to speak about the price tag in this case. We've got to speak about the price tags in this case. But yeah, okay, well, let's start with Dango Ouattara. Now, according to Maripol reports, the total deal that was agreed is about £42 million. And I was looking at that figure and I was thinking to myself, how on God's green earth do these clubs get to, get these kinds of transfer fees, for their players, mid-table teams selling to each other? How do they get those significant transfer fees? Son of Soweto, good morning. How are you? How are the Sundowners? Son of Soweto joins us from South Africa, also dubbed as the Rainbow Nation. There. That says Leeds stay in the Premier League, 17th place, I think. Okay. I think I also had Leeds at 17th place. And I think above them in 16th, I had Wolverhampton Wanderers. And then in 15th, I think I had West Ham or Bournemouth. I don't remember. But yeah, that video is up on the channel. But good morning to you, son of Soweto. I hope you're doing okay. So, okay, let's begin with Brentford. Brentford did reach an agreement to sign Bournemouth, Burkina Faso international, Dango Ouattara for £37 million plus £5 million in expected add-ons. That's a £42 million. Now, Dango Ouattara he's not the best player in that Bournemouth team. He's not even a key starter, And part of the reason as why he did push for this move is he's not a main starter. And I'm thinking to myself, how are Bournemouth able to negotiate a bigger transfer fee than Arsenal could negotiate for some of their stars? Really, it's painful to think about, really. Because we're talking about a mid-table team selling to a mid-table team, and yet when some of these clubs go to the bigger clubs trying to buy players, they want them on the cheap. But also, I think Arsenal just struggle when it comes to selling players because by sheer comparison, Chelsea do a better job. So the 23-year-old winger is a club record. It's a club record transfer for them. He's expected to sign a long-term contract. He was apparently unhappy at FC Bournemouth. That's according to the Athletic. The Nottingham Forest did also strike a total agreement with Manchester City to sign James McAtee for about £30 million. Manchester City retain a future sell-on clause as well as a buyback clause in the 22-year-old England midfielder's contract. So that deal is getting done. The Nottingham Forest are also in the process of signing Omar Hudson from Ipswich Town. Brentford were the other team that were interested in having him as a replacement for Brandon Bomo, but looks like it's Dango Ouattara that they, managed to land. But Nottingham Forest are getting Omar Hudson. I think having failed you remember they managed to keep Morgan Gibbs-White, which arguably for me it's the biggest signing for them in this transfer window. I did predict, I think, Nottingham Forest to finish ninth on the Premier League table because of their responsibilities that they're going to have in the UEFA Europa League as well as the Premier League, which could prove challenging. The Newcastle did agree a deal for Morgan Rogers. For Jacob Ramsey, not Morgan Rogers. I don't know why I keep confusing the two, Morgan Rogers and Jacob Ramsey, but it is Jacob Ramsey, the 24-year-old England midfielder, in a deal worth £39 million plus £5 million in expected add-on, taking the total transfer fee to about £44 million. Aston Villa sell well because if you got about 64 for Jean Duran, you got about £50 million plus for Moussa Diaby, and now you're getting this for Morgan Rogers. Of course, Aston Villa did not want to sell, but PSR rules and financial fair play rules have sort of forced their hand. I do understand that Aston Villa hold interest in signing Arsenal's Leandro Trossard. And I do not know, but I do not think you let Leandro Trossard go to a team like Aston Villa. Otherwise, he's going to be very, very brilliant there. Then yesterday Chelsea players did agree to give a share of their Club World Cup player bonuses to the family of Diego Jota and Andre Silva. So that was a very, very good gesture from them. Not that they needed to do it. Then also Leeds did sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin as a free agent. So I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin is going to take up the spot of Patrick Bamford, who I believe is no longer, delivering very well. Then I find the reported transfer fee of about £50 million for Tyler DeBlink are quite exorbitant. Then also AC Roma are confident of getting the green light for Manchester United for Jadon Sancho. They're taking him on an initial loan deal with an obligation to buy for about £20 million. So £20 million loan with obligation to sent in yesterday. Best proposal at Manchester United. So there's an increasing growing confidence that AC Roma are going to get Jadon Sancho. Remember, Roma are under the charges of Stefano Pioli, and I think he will make him a very, very good and successful player over there at AC Roma. Then also Newcastle are now planning to advance with Yohan Wissa deal as soon as possible after Brentford agreed the deal for Dango Ouattara. So Ouattara is expected to complete his move in the next 4 hours. That's there. Then Kingsley Coman, this one is joining Al Nassr on a 3-year deal. Otherwise, let's go through the latest from the world of gossip and transfer speculation as of this Friday morning. Okay, Manchester United are lining up a £50 million deal for Sporting and Denmark midfielder Morten Holmand at 26 if they miss out on Brighton's 21-year-old Cameroon international Carlos Baliba. That's according to the Sun. Tottenham are confident they have put together a deal for Ebelechi Eze that will satisfy Crystal Palace, who value the England midfielder at about £68 million. That's according to Team Talk. Fulham are showing interest in Manchester United and Denmark striker Rasmus Højlund, with AC Milan also pursuing the deal for the 22-year-old. That's according to the Mail. Chelsea are making progress in their efforts to sign Alejandro Garnacho for Manchester United, still according to Team Talk, while Arsenal are ready to consider offers for Ukraine left back Zichenko, with FC Porto, Fenerbahce and Real Betis all interested. That's according to Code Offside, while Borussia Dortmund have joined Bayer Leverkusen in showing interest in Brighton's Argentine winger for Facundo Benanotti. Inter Milan will give it another week to try and complete the signing of Ademola Lookman, but that's according to Gazzetta dello Sport, while Roma have offered a midfielder Manu Kone to Inter Milan, who are looking at a deal of about 30 million euros for the 24-year-old French international. The Liverpool's move for Parma defender Giovanni Lioni includes the Serie A side having a future 10% sell-on clause. That's according to Sky Sport Italy. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure doing this with you guys. Every one of you that managed to catch the morning show, I thank you so much. Dasquez, son of Soweto, Clinton Modley from Australia. I thank you so much. JY815, Spirit of LFC fans. Thank you so much. Tibantaus. It's been a pleasure having you guys on today's podcast. I wish you nothing but the very best for the rest of the day. Do not forget to go under the channel and check out our latest content under the videos section. And I'll see you guys next time. Stay blessed and bye-bye for now.